and welcome to Serenity Now, a place for entrepreneurs to ask questions, learn, get connected, and be inspired. Join us as we talk about all things business and the search for the ever-elusive Serenity Now in both business and personal life.
Jay, can you tell me why should the listeners listen to this podcast?
Because we're cool.
All right. Rita.
He has to answer again.
Jay, why should we listen to this podcast today?
Because you need to, I don't know, I'll be honest, because you need to learn stuff. You need to listen and learn. And you know what? We bring a lot to the table. So that's why I would say you have to listen to this.
Rita, why should we listen to this podcast today?
I think that we've all gone through a lot of stuff, both together and individually. And I think this episode will help you learn how to get back out there, to be real and to have fun and to learn to play again. And all of this relates to you, your business, how to run it and how to be more successful. So I think that's why you want to listen in. Hello and welcome to another episode of Serenity Now. We're quite excited for today. I've got my good sister, Serenity Sister Candace, in the room with myself today, Rita Kim. And we've got a brilliant guest named Jay Ashton. Jay and I met, not even half a year ago. And I feel like I'm pausing over that because I just feel like I've known him forever. We've dug in deep, so deep now on personal to business to all of it. And I'm just absolutely enthralled by and inspired by this man. And I know that you will all understand why by the end of this episode today. So I'm going to toss it over to Jay. Jay, can you do a quick bio of yourself so everybody gets a chance to know who you are?
Way back when, I'm we can tell you who I am. I'm the National Business Brand Activation Manager for Sysco Canada. And I've been in the food service industry about 33 years now, coming up 34 soon. And I have done a lot in the industry of marketing. I'm a part of a marketing team right now. And I've introduced a lot of crazy things in my world over these few years. I've been working in business, and I've seen a lot, done a lot, done some crazy stuff. And, I'm from Saskatchewan, live in Alberta, and I tend to enjoy I tend to get out there and help our industry. It's kind of my DNA.
That's excellent. So you said you've been in the industry for 33 years. How did you get into the industry? Maybe you could tell us about that. I mean, the restaurant industry food service must have looked a much different 33 years ago.
So I remember riding my bike to my first job interview. It was on my bike because I was 14. And then I did I rode my bike, started KFC, and I still actually stay close to my original boss. I still message him once in a while and say, why did you do this to me? No. I started there, but it's funny because I'm the third generation in the trucking industry that actually shipped food to restaurants. That's what my dad did. That's what my grandpa did. And that's the crazy part. I know this might even sound even more crazier. If you know Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, because I'm from Swift Current, is that Al Capone used to have rum running from Moose Jaw. And my grandma ran a restaurant. And below the restaurant was where Al Capone used to hide out his stuff in the tunnels. You can Google today the Moose Jaw tunnels where Al Capone was. My grandma used to serve all the gangster people that would come up from Chicago to Moose Jaw. So my grandpa was a rum runner back in the days when he was young.
I've heard of all of this. I can't believe grandma was the original gangsta.
My grandpa, right? So we have pictures of him. He looks like Indiana Jones. It's cool. So there's been a tie in the industry to my family, to the industry my whole life. And then getting into, being raised in a very, let's say, a household that liked to fight. It's simple. I'm going to say it the way it is. In a verbal way, not physical, but a very verbal way. So my parents were always very fighting, and they were never, whatever it was. So going to a restaurant was my place where fighting didn't happen. when I was a kid. So we didn't uncover this until a couple of years ago. Me and Matt Rolfe were talking why I have such a passion for this industry. It's because it became my place where I felt safe. I felt like I wasn't have to listen to a fight. So I remember like sleeping in booths when I was a little kid, rolling up the pillow. Parents would be sitting there having their coffee. And back in those days, it was like, 2-hour dinner. And that's how I really think I have a passion for the industry, because it's my safe haven. It's even so today, I go into a restaurant, I feel safe. It's really weird, but it's like my place. I feel comfortable. I enjoy it. I feel safe. So going to high school, starting and working in a QSR, and then finding out, working in restaurants and stuff in this, and then moving over to Sysco to work for Sysco and to get into the marketing space. I didn't realize all this stuff happened until a couple of years ago with Matt. So I've dedicated most of my career now into helping restaurants succeed and helping everything from marketing to business to everything in between, social, everything. So when I moved to Cisco and we started, I actually created the business resource department for Cisco for Canada. Meaning I actually helped create all the resources we gave our customers to help them with their businesses. So that was I did that for 16 years. So then when the COVID hit and we had to look at how do we get resources out to our customers and to the industry because no one could visit anyone, I said, let's try this podcast thing. Let's try this thing. This sounds fun.
That's how the podcast came out. Got it.
I had to talk to the industry, right? I had to tell people what to do or where to go or how to start a pop-up restaurant or a pop-up business or a side hustle or whatever it was. So that's when we started the podcast in 2020, on November 14th, 2020 was our first show. And then we said, well, and it's just kind of escalated since then. But really it all comes back into how do we help the industry? How do we support the industry? How can I help them no matter what? I need them. They're my lifeline in a way, right? So that's why I've had this love in this industry. It's why I've been around in this industry forever. And then just recently I started the Podcasters Global Association for Food Service and Hospitality, meaning that all of us across this globe have got together and is growing in an association where we can all share and learn from each other in this craft, how we can help each other, but also help the industry. So that's what I do. That's a little bit of my bio, who I am and why I'm in this industry. It's a different than a business need, like making money and stuff. This is more personal. So it's a different aspect. And unfortunately it is, but it's what I enjoy. And I have an art degree. I went to university, worked in restaurants while I was in university, and I have a BFA. And I took kind of the combination of what I've learned through my university and through art and applied it to my practices at Cisco and what I do. Being creative, innovative, entrepreneurship is in my blood. And really, how do I apply that to the industry? How do I apply that to restaurants? So that's why when we sit down and we talk about ideas, then we go on a pretty quick journey and a long one usually on different ideas. So that's it. From Al Capone to podcasting.
Oh, that's an incredible story, Jay. I actually didn't know that. We've had quite some long chats, but this is like, yeah, thank you for saving it. I loved it. I'm hoping to see some pictures now about grandma and such. But
actually, I don't have it here, but I do have his truck. And it looks like those vehicles that Al Capone, like it's got the curves. It's really cool looking. And we didn't connect all the dots until we heard the stories because he was kind of a bad, in a way, didn't listen to the law, let's say, a lot, and just had a good time. And it was so funny because we didn't relate that back to Al Capone until they actually found the tunnels in the 90s. So grandma used to tell us stories about serving all these gangsters, and we're like, whatever, grandma. And then she passed. Exactly, grandma talk. Yeah, whatever. Who thought that Al Capone was going to be a moose jaw? But if you look at where Chicago is, and you look where Moose Jaw is, back in those days, it's not like they drove all the way to Moose Jaw. They took the train. That was their main transportation. So if you look on a map, you can see this perfect streamlined train line all the way up to Canada, where in Moose Jaw, you're safe. Trust me. There's not much going on. And then in your tunnel, if you've been to the tunnels, they're incredible. They actually showed all his secret tunnels and secret hideaways and stuff that he hit. And then literally the restaurant that we knew for years, that was Grandma's, that she was the main source of food for the gangsters and everyone downstairs. So pretty cool. So when you go there on the tour, we actually looked like my mom was looking for family members in the pictures and stuff, because Grandpa was bad enough to do that. And then south of Moose Jaw is the Badlands, or not Badlands, or something like that. There's nothing there. And they were running booze back and forth between Canada and the United States through that south of Moose Jaw.
Wow.
That's definitely interesting family history. Mine isn't nearly as interesting. They were cattle ranchers, and it was no Yellowstone, let me tell you. So it was pretty boring stuff. There was cows and there was grass. That's good. So marketing's become your thing. It is a very creative industry. I can see why the BFA would be come in handy there. So, but before the podcast, you were telling us that there's been some changes in the marketing, in the focus of marketing, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think marketing right now is really shifting a lot from, how do I say this? The old way of thinking. It's all about brand today. It's really moving to brand. And I think there's a lot of factors, but I think COVID really disrupted the marketing space a lot. And there's a lot of great things happening in marketing right now. A lot of this authenticity is really becoming very important in marketing. A lot of what I'm seeing in the market space when it comes to building your brand is really cool stuff. It's really neat because you just have to be yourself. That's the cool part. And I think about this a lot, is that when you think about the marketing, so I do back in the 30s and stuff like that, you saw a lot of this pure authentic content that was created on TV. You'd see Lucille Ball doing a show, and then she'd cut for a commercial and smoke a cigarette, talk about cigarettes, and then go back to the show, right? And it was like a live commercial. And you're seeing this be applied a lot to the content that we're producing. I really believe through probably the 60s and 70s and definitely the 80s, we thought that it had to be more of a polished world, because it was probably pretty crappy after World War II, that we had to have this perfect perception of what marketing looked like. So the commercials were overly produced. They were purely perfect, and everyone had the fake hair and the plastic keyboards, and everything looked so perfect, right? And everything was so scripted. And I think what's happening now through COVID, we've had this realization of what we need to tie ourselves to, or what we need to believe in the content. And I think social's done that as well. Social media has caused us wanting to go back into believing in the content that we're producing when it comes to marketing. And that's coming from podcast. I think podcasts, we'll get in that in a second, what I think about podcast. But I think that is why brand is becoming so important, because we believe in people, we believe in real people. We want authenticity in the content that we're producing. And I think TikTok's doing that right now. I think some of the stuff you're seeing through IG, through Facebook, those channels where we're being more drawn into people creating content, having a good time, opposed to the plastic stuff that we see on TV. And then we look at how do we create marketing through those channels so people believe the messaging that we're applying into our marketing. So I always, in my presentations, one of the big lines out there, and this comes from Sean Walsh, chef down in San Diego that I know. And he's like, don't be the commercial, be the show. That's our line. And I truly believe in that. And that is about, you don't need to be that perfect commercial online. And we see that through TikTok. The content on TikTok, you see the odd company trying to slip a commercial in, but you can't swipe that thing fast enough to get to some person just doing something stupid, right? It's really interesting. So I think we're seeing a shift in marketing to become more pure, more authentic, more unprofessional. I know if that sounds true. One of the lines that we have is just be professionally raw on social. That is what we believe in.
I 100% am feeling the same way. when it comes to marketing, I know I can speak for myself, perhaps for Candace, we're not marketing people in any way, shape, or form. And one of the reasons for that is we're not interested in this gimmicky, fluff stuff. We're like, our motto is simple.
Transparency.
Yeah, transparency, but go do the work, do a good job, rinse and repeat, right? That's as simple as maybe it's as hardcore as we get on marketing. And so we can understand this stuff, like how many followers do you have, or what kind of influencers? What do you think I have time for influencers?
Well, you know what's happening right now? I'll get on influencers. I want to touch on that because you don't have a problem ever me not talking. Influencers are interesting. So we're seeing a shift from the individual influencers to the community model influencers. And this is really interesting. And I also think this is one of these COVID babies maybe out of the situation is, do you believe one person's opinion or do you believe a group of people around that same opinion? An example would be Amazon. When you look at Amazon, you look for a product, you scroll down, we instantly look at the reviews. When you start to see 15 reviews on one item, you believe in those reviews than you do if one person put one review on that same product. So when you look at it, we have more of an impact when it comes to a group influence than we do single. Now, I think we've went through, and it's no one's fault, it's just the evolution of social. I think we've went through the individual influencers. It was cool at the time. They did really good. But we all know that people are paid to say those things, right? So that's where the public knows that. But when you have a group of different opinions that are still circled around that same subject or that same opinion or message, you're going to believe that group. And you're seeing that everywhere. And I don't know if it's coming influence from the COVID, but we're seeing people move to more of a community-based model. And I think we're going to see that continue, move forward, right? But that's why I think all of our podcasters getting together is more powerful as a community than if we're out there on our islands by ourselves.
I'm going to jump in really quick because I 100% am feeling this whole thing. And I think maybe COVID had something to do with it as well. But I think each and every one of us are figuring out more and more who we are and who we are not. And when we are doing that and getting closer to ourselves and getting more grounded and centered, we don't have the time or desire for any of this other stuff anymore. And so when somebody comes along and makes a video or talks about something and it's so real and it's raw, it's very raw and unfiltered, we connect with it. It's just an automatic connection. And then we're like, I get you. I had that happen this morning. I just fell down. I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm finding.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I find comfort in that realism and transparency. I don't know. I feel more comfortable than something that is overly produced, I think you called it. So
exactly, right? That was that Well, I think that was the thing that we were kind of going for, right? We wanted that perfect chip on the plate or the perfect burger or the image and stuff like this. But as we all understand more and more, and I think the world becomes more transparent itself, we know that that's not the reality, right? The other thing I want to touch on that was around the ability of marketing today, like where marketing is heading. I think we're going to see more and more of a demand that you must be real. You must be real. And it's almost like this purity that we're looking for within the messaging. Like, we don't need the fluff. Get right to it. Don't waste my time. Tell me what it is. I believe also that it's going to be all based on quantity is going to be king. Very important. It's going to be quantity of your content. So if you're out there building your brand and he's like, well, I listened to some schmuck that said only 3 to 5 times to post on Instagram in one day, you need to do this and that. I always say that was someone that didn't want to do one more picture. They got lazy. There's so much content being produced every second in the world right now. And it's also for free, as Gary Vee puts it. You need to create content to stay up there in the algorithm, stay up there with everyone, be in everyone's face, make enough. Obviously, it has to be content that's useful, I find, but don't shy back on your content. Create a ton of content. This is the time. This is the time. I get reached out to every day because they say, my algorithm, got another one today, led me to you. And I'm like, I had no idea, right? So, but that's based on quantity. Don't worry, because what happens is we get so stuck in it having to be perfect that we go spend a fortune on people creating it for us. And we go, wow, we just blew $20,000 in a commercial or whatever, an ad, social, or 10,000. We're only going to do one of those. So would you want one $10,000 polished ad or 20 for $100? Gets the same message across. It may not be perfect and look like TV, but if we look at what TV's doing, it's tanking very, very well. People are not believing it. They're switching from watching shows that are scripted, perfect shows, to watching the TikTok stuff, to watching people on TikTok. They'd rather see the reality, right? The real reality. So I think we're going to see more of that. I don't think we're going to go away from that. I think it's going to be even more intense on purity. You can see it on TikTok. Some companies are trying to recreate it. It's funny. I find it hilarious because they're trying to be, and they're just messing it up. But there is some companies that are doing that still, like doing very good in their messaging. Like they're not being so direct in their product, but being more about the experience or the emotion. They're nailing it. So I think it's the power of being real. I know it's so weird to say it sometimes, but the power of being real in advertising or in commercials or ads or building your brand I know it's so weird to say it. It's going to have, it's really the way it should have been, but it's the way we're going. Look at Gary Vee. Gary Vee puts out 1 to 2 podcasts a day, driving content nonstop, right? And then you look at someone else, and it's not even, his content's good and stuff like this, and there's a lot of other amazing podcasters out there. But you look at his content, and you look at what he's doing, he's driving you to, he's creating FOMO almost within the aspect of, you want to hear what tomorrow is. What is tomorrow? What is tomorrow? And he's very edutainment style almost, or very resource-based. So his content is always needed. I want more of it. It's good stuff. I want to hear it. What's tomorrow like? What's tomorrow like? And then you have great, amazing other podcasters that may release one every 2 weeks or one a week. And you kind of lose that attachment to them. Like you don't feel like you know them. You feel like a cousin, right? Or an awkward relationship that you have to get into their space, adjust your mindset for that content. Opposed to Gary, he's almost like every day I'm going to listen to my little tidbits from him.
It kind of reminds me of when we were growing up, and every night, 5:00, guess what would happen? You'd turn on the news, and guess what? Those people would come into your homes, and it was like, okay, how are you doing today? Oh, look, they changed their hair. They got, you just felt like you knew them. You felt like you knew them. And my parents talked to the TV. It was almost like they were like, no, and we're like, who are you talking to? Well, that's my friend. No, actually, they don't know you. But that's exactly the way it's happening. So when you see this person every day, it's almost like you feel like you know them now, and you're relating.
That's part of building that brand, right? You want that. You look at I've been through this brand thing. I'm still building my brand, but I have seen how it takes time. Don't get me wrong. It's not like something over time. You have to be consistent at it. You have to always be annoying. Some may argue I am, but you have to be on top of it. You have to nourish it. I find all the time, water it every day. You have to grow it. And as soon as you find the roots take in, let's use that analogy. The roots take in, you can see when the dial moves, right? Like all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what happened here? You're getting, people are like, I'll post something and then my phone rings a minute later going, why did you do that? So it's like, are you kidding me? Like, it's insane. It's amazing.
Oh, I'm with you. But so now I'm going to take it back to a business owner who's listening to this. And you know what it's like to be a business owner. You already don't have enough time in the day. So how are they going to try to work with this new style? Other than someone kind of walking behind them, filming them as they,
With a GoPro?
Yeah. Or do we just have a video camera set up in the corner and let's, I like that.
So there's two things there. So one, actually putting your video in the corner of your business and playing it on TikTok for TikTok Live is actually a pretty big trend. And it's actually, it's incredible how many people they want to taste into your business from a different lens. It's almost like Be Real is bigger than, so for concerts, and I work with a team out of LA, what's the biggest thing for concerts right now is not streaming the concert, it's streaming behind the concert, the stuff that's behind there. And that is becoming more attractive now. Now, if you follow Metallica on TikTok, they actually set their stage up this way. Brilliant. Plus, they have a brilliant marketing agency they use. And what that is they have actually took the back of this is brilliant. If you get a chance, go look at Metallica's stage. It is a learning here for marketers. They have taken the musicians and put them in the back, but out in the front, meaning their stage is kind of a round octagon, kind of weird looking thing. And then on the edge of the stage, they have placed the musicians by the audience. So when you go and watch, let's say James, he is actually beside the audience on his chair having a cigarette or a cigar, getting ready, warming his hands up. And all these people are hitting him with video and Be Real, watching him do this. Well, it's all over the internet. It's massive. Like that exposure. This is the stuff that we would never see because it's behind the curtains. They have opened that up and exposed it and said, let's get all these people with their phones to create generate content for us, which is brilliant. And they have exposed this. And we're more interested than that of what he's doing there. He was giving out chiclets the other day to the audience and, fist pumping and everything else. We're more interested in that than him on the stage.
It's funny because I had a few people tell me, is like, well, you keep talking about your chickens, Rita. Can you just put the camera up? Because we are so interested. And I'm like, and I kept brushing. It's been a month of people asking me to put the freaking video out. And I was like, what do you want to know? And well, you're not going to sit there and watch. I mean, I watch Chick TV because I think they're fascinating and they're just so dumb, just brilliantly dumb. And so I laugh all the time, but I thought it was kind of a bit of a joke, but you're telling me as the expert, this is real.
Absolutely. So also there's a really big, I've been watching it lately. This is even really bizarre. Harvesters right now are recording out their combine in Saskatchewan, and you can follow them around while they are doing a field, and they're commenting while they drive, and people are asking them questions all over the world while they're harvesting. Well, it's almost Zen-like. You're watching these big tractors, and they just have the camera out the window, and they're just harvesting the wheat. It doesn't do much. The wheat moves a little bit like water, so it's really, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and we're watching. So I've been watching them, and there'll be 2, 3, maybe 4,000 people around the world watching that. It is mind-blowing, but that's what we want. It's almost like we want those bizarre experiences, right?
That's what it is right there. Those experiences. I think that's what everybody's trying to connect to. They're saying to me, we don't understand. How are you living like that? What's going on? And all the most every possible question is being asked.
Yeah.
And I think it is, again, another way to connect. And you're real. And this is, I want to know, I want to learn, but I want to watch it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same. That honestly, check out Metallica because that was brilliant. And the company that I know down in LA, they said the same thing. Their streaming company, they say there's more requests now for, they call it like the Be Real or behind the curtains of what's happening than actually the concert itself. Because we've seen that.
I'm taking that, you called it the Be Real, and people will probably say B and then REEL. I think we should call it BREAL.
Okay.
And that's the whole motto of everything, be real, right? That's what you came back with, right? So I think we're running full circle.
This connects back to that whole stuff around advertising. And so here's another example. The CEO of Walmart came out with a quarterly update probably about 2-3 months ago on LinkedIn in the same outfit that nothing fancy, just a shirt, but he had the same badge that his employees does. And he gave a quarterly update from his office. And it wasn't fancy in any way. And he said, here we are. Here's our earnings and everything else. And I'm like, he's not in a suit, right? He's not in a big fancy boardroom. He's not addressing the nation kind of format. He's in his office with the same badge, those yellow ones, like with the big thing on it, and he's telling us his update. And I was like, he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But I connected with him. And when you're looking at, do you invest in businesses that you connect with like that? Or is he some guy way up in an ivory tower that we don't
looking down
with?
upon us?
Steve Jobs wrote the book on it. Why did you think Steve Jobs could afford a suit? Yes. Why did he always launch world-changing products in sneakers, jeans, and a turtleneck? He could afford a suit, but he had to relate to his audience, to the consumers to buy his products. I always use that as an example because he had to relate to them. He couldn't talk. How do you listen to someone in a suit that's worth bazillions of dollars and relate? He had to bring it down. Walmart did that with their leaders. It was incredible. And I think more companies, if they just, I always say, pull the curtain down a little and just be yourselves, it would actually increase your market share, your stock prices, and you probably sell more food because people relate to it. Back to that whole thing, be authentic.
Be real. So I'm going to ask one final question, then we're going to wrap it up. But so what's the kind of first piece of advice to help people start this process of, I guess being real?
Yeah.
What would be the first bit of advice, or where can people turn to start there? Do we all call Jay? Is that what you'd like? Or if I'm in the food service industry, what would I do?
But I do want to touch on podcast for a second before we get into that, because I want to talk about podcasts, because I think every business I think should have a podcast. That's my motto. Every restaurant, every business has a podcast, and people are like, they all giggle. And I'm like, okay, it is the last frontier of honest marketing and honest content that's out there on social. It is one of the ones that we invest 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes of our time to listen and believe in the people's messages and what they believe in. It is the last frontier that has not been messed up on social. So, for instance, you put, social in the sense video, but might be questionable. But we're having this intimate moment with someone on a podcast. We're going to listen to all that content, listen to all that messaging, all that good stuff. And if someone's going to do that, they typically are truthful in what they're producing when it comes to that format, right? So I believe that everyone in the business world should have a podcast, because it is one of your marketing avenues that you're going to connect to your audience, that they're going to believe everything you say and do, right? Or suggest or recommend. So I think everyone should have one. I think restaurants could have one. I think every restaurant should have a podcast, because there's multiple things you can do with it. And the best thing about podcasts is there's no rules. There's not a rule book. You can do whatever you want. You can make them 20 minutes to 2 hours, whoever cares. There's no rules. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that you can go in there and be creative. And I think that's also why you see advertising on TV, on radio tanking like at remarkable rates. Back to that whole thing, it's a commercial. Well, when you do advertising, even ad reads on podcast, like when we do ad reads on our podcast, the first thing is like, cannot be scripted. Absolutely not. Nope. So we want mistakes. I messed up words on ad reads and all these other things, but it's real. And at the end of the day, we just want people to believe in what we believe in, or believe in our messaging. That's it. And I think podcast is the last frontier until someone comes in and messes it up. But I think podcasts, and then you slip into the AI world, which we'll get into that some other day. But those two, I think, are going to be your channels of your advertising and your marketing moving forward for your businesses. So what I would say for people, where do you start? First of all, listen to podcasts. There's so much good content being produced out there on learning. And just think, like every morning I listen to a podcast for 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. It's my ADHD kicks and I can't handle it. And then I'll listen to one to drive to work. So I listen to about 2 a day. If I come home and I listen to one. But listen to them. I think that's what we need to do, is we need to, take the sponge and soak everything up we can when it comes to what we need to do. Second thing, I think every business needs to do, and this is, I leave all my lectures this way. It comes up on my screen, is, and this, I don't know if Rita, I probably said this to you maybe before, but my saying is every piece of art that is hung in any galleries in the world that is worth a lot of money, any fancy, from the Guggenheim to over in Paris to New York, you name it. All that art was never built on intent. It was built because they played. The artist played in their studio, and that is their business. And when I look at businesses, we need to play more. We need to take risks. We need to mess things up. We learn from our mistakes, but we won't do that unless we allow ourselves to play and create. And when you look at businesses, we stop playing. We stop playing, right? What did those other guys do that moved and changed the world? They played. We always look at Amazon, first, it's always the picture of the first day that in his office, and it's written on the wall, and he was playing to get what he needed to get. And every piece of art was built by them playing in their studio. Pollock, Barnett Newman, Andy Warhol, they all played in their studios. So we need to learn from that in the future. That was one of the things I took from university. That was all the years I went, was you need to play more. You need to create and play more. Because when you stop playing, then we just get stiff.
True. It's so true. We get stuck into that kind of robot, automatic, that's why people are like, I don't know how I drove home because I was on autopilot, right? So we've been on autopilot for too long. COVID shook us up.
Yeah.
And hopefully shaking us out. And now this is the whole thing of being real and figuring out who we are and grounding ourselves and kind of coming back to a new way, a new life.
And I think that's what the world also needs is more fun and more play, right? Like we do need to that. We need to laugh a lot or have a good time. Like we call it edutainment on our shows.
That's perfect.
Right? Is that what we focus on? Is that we have to have a laugh. The world is just messed up too much to be so serious all the time, and it's business. And you see these people on LinkedIn in the suits. Oh, look at me in my webinar and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not believing a word you're saying because you're so stiff. Have fun. Enjoy this time. Create business based on playing and creating. Because innovation is key, right? Like business will die if you don't innovate. And I think innovation comes from playing. So there's my art world. 5 years university, I came out with that.
But it sustained you now, right? So all this time, and you're obviously doing something right. So I think we're going to wrap it up. Although I think we could probably talk forever. We might just have to bring you back in on that interesting AI topic that we just briefly touched on. But at the end of kind of every session, what we like to do is go around the table and kind of do, what was your aha moment? And it's kind of the quick fire. So, or maybe a last question or a last piece of advice from yourself or any of us. And I'll start with Candace.
Okay.
And, I'll throw it over to you. What was your takeaway?
Well, I have to say that I felt the changes that you're talking about, the movement towards authenticity, and I just haven't had the words to put to it. I've been, busy and focusing on other things, but I feel a great relief at your words of, everybody's moving towards more authenticity and more being real and having fun in your life. And, your words about, people being shaken up by COVID and maybe, we're ready for change. So I felt that change. And now I feel some comfort at having a clearer understanding of where that what it is that I'm feeling. So.
Yeah, and I think you also made a big change too, right, Candace?
Yeah,
through it all, you picked up and said, "I'm done."
And for sure,
you moved. So, okay, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jay. What was or if you have a last piece of advice, one more little tip, or what came out of this for you?
I think it's this ability to talk more about the ability, talk more about being creative and playing more. I think that's like, if I could tell anyone what to do tomorrow, just go do something different. Do something different in your business. Try something different. Don't worry about messing up stuff. And I think that's what I would say, my last message, or to everyone out there, is just play more, have fun, allow for mistakes, and, do a podcast. Always have fun. And just, I think business needs it so bad, because all you hear every day is the mental illness problems we have in businesses. Yes. We hear the struggles. We hear people, quiet quitting, all these different things, because we forgot to play. We kind of went into, I need to be an adult. I need to be a business person. I need to do, these perfect presentations. And, I posted the other day on LinkedIn is that yesterday, I got to tell you a quick story before we finish, is that like I'm leaving for a trip to do some shows out east. And I'm like really, really, really busy getting ready for them. But I had one of our vendors, Marvin, his name. Marvin, he emails me and he asked, so Marvin, why don't you drop by my studio for a coffee? Right? Let's have coffee. We forgot. I had a coffee with him. We had the greatest talk for about an hour and a half. I scheduled out of my time to have a coffee. I posted last night saying, I think we forgot about the power of having a coffee with someone. And I think we need to do that as well more of, is just sitting back and listening to people and having a cup of joe or a cup of coffee and just listening and sharing ideas and talking things through. This virtual world, these meetings, not getting out there and having a coffee with someone in business, around business, pleasures as well. But business, I think we forgot. And I always say the ideas that mostly change our businesses are never created out of boardrooms. They're created around a cup of coffee or the Xerox room or the water cooler room.
Or the pizza and beer on Friday night.
Or the pizza and beer Friday night. And for the restaurant industry, it's the staff booth at the end of the day.
Right. Okay. So I love everything that you said, Candace. I'm so glad, because I think that a lot of our listeners are going to feel the exact same way. And Jay, I love, again, there's still more stuff that can come out of you. It just oozes out of you, just drops everywhere. Just follow Jay. There's crumbs, everywhere. But I also agree with everything that you're sharing today. And I love the idea. But it sounds like, for me, my big takeaway is I give me permission to go back and play. I give me permission to go back and enjoy time, and learn more about me, but also business through my friends and colleagues. So I guess I'll join you for beer and coffee and such in your studio, because you're not too far away from me, Jay. So I'll be there on Friday night. Or you can come visit the chicks with me.
I was going to say, so here's something I challenge you on that. Okay, I'm going to challenge you. So we can do that, but then I want to see on either IG or TikTok a live of you feeding.
You're going to have to come and show me how to do this stuff, Jay. So that I'm going to throw it right back at you. I will do it, but you have to come out and show me.
But I challenge you on that, because you said that, but then you stopped. And I'm like, no. You got to go for it.
I'll do it. I'm good to go. I'm good to go. I want you to meet my rooster. His name is Monday. He's as big. He comes right past my knees. He's huge. And I think you'd all love Monday. But I'm with y'all. And I'm going to wrap it up. But I'm really hoping that you all got a little bit of understanding, a little bit of inspiration, got connected, and perhaps found a little bit of serenity now. Thanks so much, Jay, Ashton, for coming in, and Candace, my Serenity sister, and myself, Rita Kim.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and picked up some good tips and best practices that would benefit your entrepreneurial journey. Remember, none of the content in this podcast should be relied upon as standard legal or business advice. Always consult a professional for your specific business. You may know someone who could benefit from this podcast. Please share it with your business community, and perhaps it can give an entrepreneur you know some serenity now.